All right, Mosse, should we get on to my one for the road here?
Well, yeah, because you just mentioned it. Guys like you and Eric had so much pride in representing your country, so I'm sure you found it very interesting some of the stuff that Ronaldo and Kane said in recent days.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you really have to be careful as you get older, not just as a player, as a person, from coming off too grumpy old man. In this case, whether it's Kane or Ronaldo, and I do feel that the further you get in your career and the older you get, maybe the more appreciation you have, and a lot of it is relative to, maybe you've already had glory. Maybe you've made a lot of money. Maybe you've become very famous. Maybe you've achieved those goals that you set out to achieve. And so maybe you have a better perspective on things. And so I was interested this last couple of days to hear, these incredible stars, these legendary stars relative to their national team lament the fact that, this generation that is coming out, they don't see with the same type of heart. Now, who knows? Again, this could be a passage of time and them, reimagining what the past was. But I do think that, it's I do think that it's important to understand what it means to represent a national team. And I guess, Mosse, let's listen to some of the quotes. I know you have them in front of you, so I read some of the quotes so people
Yeah,
get an
so
idea of what they were talking about.
so just to give some context here, a lot of Portuguese players pulled out of this camp, and so Ronaldo said, "I get frustrated with some players who don't want to play for Portugal. Enjoy playing for the national team. Time flies. There's nothing better than representing your country and your culture." Similarly, England had 9 players pull out of their squad ahead of these Nations League games against Greece and Ireland in this window. Harry Kane was not having it. He said, among other things, he said, England comes before club. England is the most important. Obviously, I think it's a tough period of the season, and maybe that's been taken advantage of a little bit. I don't really like it, if I'm being honest. Like I said, England comes before anything.
Yeah, and I know that taps into an emotion and a passion and a heart and I guess a sense of nationalism that I think uh, has a home and I think has a place. And to hear these players talk about that, I I tend to agree in that, a lot of times we'll talk about it in the context of dual nationals. But, the reality is that it's just about being a national team player. You have to, at some point, after all the X's and O's and the wins and the losses and, the fame or fortune that comes from playing for your national team, after you put that aside, there has to be something innate. There has to be something inside you that you feel something to play for this. And I think it's different. I think it's vastly different than the feeling that you have for a club. And I'm not saying that you can't be emotional and passionate and connected to a club. We see plenty of players that forever are associated and linked to their club and they're incredibly passionate about it. But I think it's a whole nother level and a very different type of commitment and connection when it comes to playing for your country. And I am 54 years old right now. And if Pochettino at some point turned around and looked up in the stands and I was in the stands and said, "Hey, can you come give me 20 minutes?" I would do anything, even with my metallic knee. I would give anything to be able to do it. Not because of the winning, not because of the goals, not because of the like I said, the actual running around, but what that running around represents. And it represents your association and your connection. And what it hopefully represents is your love and your honor and your tribute and your respect for your country and the people of your country. And we're incredibly fortunate to be able to do that. However, when someone like Ronaldo or Kane say this, they can tend to look like they are grumpy old manning about this young generation. But I do think that it resonates, and I do think that it bears repeating. And sometimes you need, for lack of a better word, older players or older folks to remind you of how good you have it, of what you have in the palm of your hand, and not to waste it and never to take it for granted. And I think that's what they were doing. And I think it can be welcome. And while the younger players may grumble, be careful because not too long you will be that old player. And if you do take it for granted, you might not be around like Kane and Ronaldo to be able to say that because you might not be on the team anymore. So I do think that it was interesting to hear it, and I'm glad that they said it because in this day and age where I do think it's kind of going in a different direction when it comes to the national team, it would I would be sad if that happened because I don't think there's anything better than representing your country. As great as the club success may be, there's nothing like putting your hand over your heart and hearing that song play and singing with not just your players, but singing with your country in a stadium and then going on the field and representing that country. It is awesome, and I wish I could do it again, but that I did it once was pretty cool. Mosse, anything before we go, my friend?
Well, Americans will get a chance to represent their country again on Monday when the U.S. hosts Jamaica in St. Louis in the second leg of this tie. And we will do this again on Monday. We're going to do a post-game pod, but this time with Stu Holden as a special guest, breaking down the second leg between the U.S. and Jamaica.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.